Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show. This week we have the entire Goblins and Gnomes set review. The whole thing, 120 cards, Spectator mode, and a random balance chance that we were not really expecting to 3 cards. But anyway, to celebrate this wondrous occasion, I am putting a former teammate of mine through a ridiculous amount of recording. Say hi, jonpii.
Hello.
Yeah, jonpii used to be on Icebreakers. He is currently on Vega Squadron. He transferred about 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around that now.
Yeah, it was just after the last versus series you won, which was against Cookie, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I'm my teammate right now
Yep,
too.
yep. But this is going to be interesting because the set review, I've got a feeling, is going to be 4 parts. We're going to split the neutrals in half, and then we're doing up to 4 drops today. Then we're splitting the neutrals in half, and then we're splitting the classes in half, and then tomorrow is going to be the class cards day. Today is going to be the neutral cards day, and then versus series is going to fit in there somewhere. Probably on Friday now that I think about it, but we'll have to see. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started and hope it works this time. Oh, it did work this time.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah, Hearthstone has a habit of disappearing on me whenever I record it. But anyway, so first thing we're going to go over is the balance patch thingy-majig. So this was incredibly random. I was not expecting this. We got card dumped yesterday, 60 cards or so. And then they were like, hey, have a patch. I'm like, okay. And this is a patch. So, yeah, this is development, and they're talking about basically the fact that they wanted to change some of the cards to work better with the new set. Now, the first thing is that Soulfire is being changed to 1 cost, as it would appear that Flux has jumped the gun here a bit because it is not out yet. It's still 0 cost. Whatever. Anyway, so Soulfire has been increased to 1 mana from 0. I'm not sure this was needed, and I'm not sure this changes much.
I don't think it really changes anything, to be fair. It's still going to be used. It's
It
it's
won't,
not that big of a change.
it won't kill knife jugglers as much, though.
No. I think basically it's just to stop the Zoolock crushing the first minion you play.
Yeah, so he can't Soulfire a cultist and then build his board as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why they change it. It's just like, I mean, the real problem with Warlock is that their hero power is too good to give them good cards. You just can't
I
give Warlock good cards.
No, that's true. Giving
So,
them low cost cards is kind of the problem there too.
yeah, discard is not enough of a drawback for a 0 cost. I'd say 1 is fine though. It's like, it's still a super powerful burn spell, but it does have a mana cost now as well, which is pretty useful when it comes to not immediately losing your board on turn 2. So, I'm okay with this change. I'm not sure if it was needed, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm cool with that too.
Gadgetzan Auctioneer. Now, this is something I was expecting a change to Gadgetzan. The reason for it was 1, spare parts, and 2, Gadgetzan has a habit of never doing anything fair. It's either completely useless or broken, depending on the deck it's in.
I
So,
feel
yeah,
I feel like this was like a needed change with all the spare parts that are coming in.
agree.
With Goblin versus Gnomes, I can
Yeah.
really agree with this.
This also puts it more in line with the other 2 6-drops that have similar effects to this now in Goblins and Gnomes, which is the Rogue Legendary, which we'll get to eventually, and that thing's ridiculous. But the Rogue Legendary copies spells, and that's a 6-drop, and there's a neutral card which draws mechs whenever you play a 1 cost spell, and that's also a 6-drop that has better stats. So I think they're basically saying if you get card advantage from spells, it should cost 6 mana.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which I'm okay with. It does mean that it's less abusable. It means you actually have extra turns to respond to things, which I'm okay with. And it does mean that gadgets and decks will play more like Miracle Druid and less like Miracle Rogue, where they're like a couple turns slower and they just wait until they have extra mana so they can draw a bunch of cards in 1 turn.
I think that's how you want it to be though. I don't think you
Yep.
just this turn 5 you don't want to be able to cycle that much.
Miracle
That's what Miracle
Druid,
Rogue
Miracle
can.
Druid actually wasn't that unfun of a deck. Like for your opponent, because it didn't have the feeling. It felt like a mid-range deck with a draw engine, whereas 5 mana Gadgetzan and the ability to abuse it immediately just feels kind of dirty.
Yeah, not
So
cool.
yeah, I'm happy with this change. Flare. Now, I have a problem with this change because not because of the change. Well, yes, kind of because of the change, but there's a couple things. One, they've added a neutral secret stealer, so Flare automatically becomes worse because it doesn't just instantly kill all secrets, and it's still the best one, but like it's a class card, so you could argue for it. But the reason I don't like this change is because they said a while ago, I can't remember when exactly. It was before the buzzer change and Leroy change, where they said that Flare was, yes, it was restrictive, it was restricting people's deck choices and design choices, but they weren't going to nerf it because they didn't really see it as overpowered, and then they nerfed it anyway.
I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I stopped running Flare in my Hunter last week, I think, for tracking.
Tracking's a better
So
card.
this just makes, like, I don't really care about this anymore.
I mean, actually, there's one thing I'm happy with here, because Flare, you played it over tracking because after Naxxramas, you couldn't fit both in your deck, and Flare, you needed it for the mirror. But tracking is it's basically a strictly better card if you're not facing secrets, because the stealth interaction doesn't come up very often. So I'm happy that tracking is back, and the reason for it is because personally, I think tracking is the most skill testing card in the entire game.
Yeah, it requires you to think ahead, like, really far in some cases.
Like
Unless you're getting exactly what you want from them three
every
cards.
top hunter player has a different mulliganing strategy and playing strategy with tracking. That's insane. So
Yeah,
well,
it does, like, it shows the skillful hunters.
it does, yeah, and it was part of why hunter decks that were running double tracking and they needed to were actually much. You could tell the difference between a very good hunter player and a kind of okay hunter player based on the way they use tracking. And I'm happy that's back because even though I'm not the best tracking user in the world, I've made tons of misplays with tracking. I still like the fact that it's an extra dimension you can add to the skill level in the game. So I'm fine with tracking's return, and Flare goes next to Cool Pet, and if you put them next to each other, Cool Pet looks significantly better. But I think this is the end of an era for Flare, and tracking is back. So
Yeah.
we can all have fun with that one. Anything else to say before we move on?
Now I think I'm pretty much done.
Okie dokie. So, on to the expansion information. This is all on Hearthbone, and it is above the ridiculous card list. So, there's over 120 cards. The packs are called the same as normal packs. And they're basically the same as normal packs, they just have different card pool in them. They were released at the same time, and they can all be crafted and disenchanted with dust. So, they're basically just extra cards. Now, something interesting is that the GVG packs are going to be the arena rewards and not the expert packs. Now, at first, I was thinking maybe you should be able to choose, although I can see why they wouldn't want you to have the whole choice thing. Something else is that the new set is probably better than the base set and is also what you want more because people won't have it as much. So getting it as your reward for arena, I think is absolutely fine.
I don't know, I feel like for the newer players that use Arena, like the players that don't buy card packs and use Arena to farm cards, it's like, it kind of crushes them, but it's not that big.
I think it'd be nice if you could choose.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they should have done, but
Just have like a choice where when you get the pack reward, it just says Goblins and Gnomes, or like it'd be cool if every pack reward you got, like the one you get for starting the game, for example, when you clicked it, it basically said, do you want this to be a Goblins and Gnomes pack or a base set pack? And it'd be the same for all future expansions. I think that'd be cool.
yeah, that'd be pretty sweet, to be fair.
Yeah, so I think that's probably what they should do, but we'll have to see in the future when they release more sets. Now, onto my favorite part of this entire patch, Spectator mode. Now, if anyone doesn't know, I've been waiting for Spectator mode for about 1.5 years, and there's a couple things I really want to do with this. The first one is I'm not sure if this is going to work, attempt to cast versus series live. As in, when they're playing the matches, which means that I don't have to depend on recordings and means that I don't have to edit for 15 years to get something finished. And it also means that I can't accidentally see the games ahead of time, which has happened before, which is better commentary. So I'm pretty happy about this. It also means that I can randomly spectate people in my friends list, which is fun. But in terms of the actual features for it, you can spectate games your friends are in, but only if they have spectating enabled, which I should imagine most people will. You can invite friends to spectate your games, which is really handy. You can't see the opponent's cards if you're spectating a friend, which is okay, because otherwise you could basically watch someone on ladder and cheat for them. So I'm okay with this. Spectating a game lets you hover over elements on the board independent from your friends, so if you're bored from watching, I guess. You can see when you're being spectated. Yeah, the number on the bottom. They actually did show a screenshot of this. It's like a little yellow eye in the bottom, and you can see how many people are watching. So that's interesting. The other thing is that you can, like for tournament broadcasting, you can actually see both players' hands. This is really important. I'm very happy they made this because it means that anyone who wants to run a tournament or does show matches or, as I said, for me, Versus Series, and I imagine iHeartU is quite happy about this as well for King of the Hill, it means they don't have to do a ridiculous amount of editing to get those double hands going with the flip perspective. Because if you haven't tried doing that, that takes a long time. And it's so easy to mess that up. So the fact that you can just see both hands at once is absolutely amazing for editing purposes. Jonpii, what do you think of this?
I like it, like from a viewer standpoint, because I don't make videos, so for me this is not that much, like not as good to me as it is to you. I'd much prefer a replay system, but this is still good. It means that when I'm recording for you, then I don't have to record anymore. But it's just, it makes me really lazy, and I kind of like that.
FLV files for the rest of time.
Exactly.
That's nice. It also means that, like, I've had people on. There was a problem with recording with people with Macs. Like Daparanchik has this problem where he's on a Mac and the current version of Open Broadcaster on Mac is pretty old and it just doesn't record very well at all. So as a result, you end up with really weird like scaling and really weird just stuff in general, and it really does show and it's quite irritating. So it's nice that I can get around that now, and it's something
what
which
I'd like
is
to
nice
know
in tournaments as well.
is if I was spectating a friend, would there be a delay? Because if there wasn't, then that'd really help with coaching and stuff.
I
And
don't think
helping a
there
friend
will be. I
out.
think it's going to be live, which does help with coaching. I didn't even think about that. The other thing this helps is, like Gamer Connect used to set up a casting team, and they would go through a ridiculous process, I know because I've been part of this, where you'd have to get 2 Skype windows open using a weird thing with Run. You get 2 Skype programs open, then you invite people to both, and then you have double screen sharing live, and then you put that into a weird like OBS setup, and it was ridiculous. Like, it was just absolutely absurd. So the fact that you can actually imitate that by literally adding both people on BattleNet and right-clicking them and spectating. That is so much easier.
Yeah, I heard about that, like with the Gamer Connect thing and how they were doing it, and I don't even know. Like, that just seems like a lot of effort.
It was, and like it's nice that you can do these much more often. It does mean that I might, if people actually want to see this, I might do a video series where I just randomly watch a legend rank player on my friends list with their consent, obviously, and record and just commentate over it. Like, if anyone wants to see that, put it in the comment section and I'll get to work on that. But anyway, besides that, Hearthstone on Android basically is an Android version, and that is it for the extra features as far as Goblins and Gnomes stuff goes, and also the patch. So unless you've got anything else to add, John, people, we'll go into the cards.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about the Android release. Just, I guess if you want to know something, you get a free card pack when you load the game on Android, so that's a thing.
Oh, that reminds me, there's going to be a release event. I forgot about this. Basically, you're going to get a free arena run and 3 packs, if I recall correctly, if I just go into the other one. Oh, hello, random card list. There's something here. Something here. I saw this earlier. Where is it? Where is it? But anyway, basically, there's going to be a release sort of event. Like it's kind of like with Naxxramas where you got the first wing for free if you got it in the first month. There's going to be a release event where you get some packs, you get a free arena run. So that's going to be really cool. And I'm really happy that they're doing a release event. It adds more hype, which is always fine. But anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the actual cards. And there is a lot of them. So we're doing from Target Dummy, who is the Wisp of the set, to the end of the 4 drops, which is roughly 30 cards. So, first things first, the Wisp of the set. Now, I actually asked about which would be the Wisp of the set, and when I say Wisp, I don't mean worst card in the set. Like, Wisp is not the worst card in Hearthstone. However, it is the derpiest. And Target Dummy is the derpiest card in the set. 0 mana, 0/2 with Taunt, that's a mech. And the art is hilarious.
It's better than a Wisp.
It's way better than a Wisp, but it's like, it's just funny. Like, it's not even that bad, it's just funny. I mean, I don't think it will see play at all, but...
Like, even the guy's face on the art is derping, so, you know.
It's like the derpiest card in the history of Hearthstone.
When something like that happens, you want to stay away from the card. If the person is derping on the art, then just stay away from that card.
True. Anyway, moving on to the first card of the set, really, because Target Dummy, he's not terrible. I just don't think he's good enough to see play anywhere. Like Arena or Constructed. But anyway, on to the Clockwork Gnome. Now, Clockwork Gnome is a card we saw a while ago, which is a 1 mana 2/1 mech with Death Rattle, add a spare part to your hand. Now, the spare parts are conveniently down here. There are 7 of them. Emergency Coolant, freeze a minion. Finicky Cloaking Field, give it stealth until your next turn. Reversing Switch, swap a minion's attack and health. Rusty Horn, give a minion taunt. Time Rewinder, return a friendly minion to your hand. Whirling Blades, give a minion +1 attack. And Armor Plating, give a minion +1 health. And they all cost 1 mana and they are all spells. So basically the idea behind the spare parts is that they all give you basically half a card or a third of a card in advantage. And you get them for free. Like, they're supposed to smooth out your curve, which I'm okay with. And I would be okay with it apart from 2 of them. I don't know why Finicky Cloaking Field and Reversing Switch are here.
I have no idea. Like, I really like Finicky Cloaking Field though.
It seems a bit too strong, because you might get it, like, you don't need to play it in your deck. Like, Reversing Switch seems a little too strong if you get it as, like, a priest, for example.
Yeah, I could see where that's kind of bad, but I think overall, I don't think they're that strong, but they are fairly strong.
Yeah, like, the funny thing is that I would not play any of these cards in my deck apart from Finicky Cloaking Field.
Yeah.
Which says a lot, I guess, but the interesting thing about these cards is that 4 of them, these 4, Emergency Coolant, Time Rewinder, Whirling Blades, Armor Plating, are all really small effects that might help out every so often. Rusty Horn is the same, unless you have a Black Knight in your hand, and that's just unlucky for your opponent.
Yeah, I can imagine the combo now. That would make me rage.
Yeah, Finicky Cloaking Field is a bit too powerful in certain situations. You can still you can, like, there's like, as I said, Gazlo draws, he basically draws mechs when you cast 1 mana spells, so you can cloak him and draw a mech, which is a bit ridiculous, but it's just, like, most of these spare parts do what they're supposed to. I just think that there's, between these 2, Reversing Switch and Finicky Cloaking Field, there might be a few too many situations where it does a bit more than a spare part should.
All I see from these spare parts is extra card draw from Gadget-san.
Well, 6 mana Gadget-san, but yeah.
Yeah.
Still the same. So, Clockwork Gnome, he's 1 mana Death Rattle, and he's a mech. I think he's come down in power level since we saw him originally, which was ages ago, and the reason for that is because Undertaker is not as good with the rest of the set.
I still really like it.
He's still good.
1 mana 2/1. It pretty much deals with any 2-drop except from the 2/3s.
It feels like you could definitely run I think at just a ballpark, the strongest mech decks, because most of the mechs have higher health than attack. That's just the trend. So I think the classes that are going to use them the best are Priest and then the 3 ping classes. mage, rogue, and druid, because you
Right.
can actually trade. You can basically trade with two threes. And you can trade You can trade with a 2/1 and your hero power to kill a 2/3.
And you
Um,
get a nice spare part.
yep. So I quite like the Clockwork Gnome. He's not really much to talk about because he's just a 1-drop with a kind of dorky effect, but I quite like him. Much better than Leper Gnome, that's for sure. Cogmaster was not that good originally and is absolutely terrible now.
Yeah, I didn't really like this to start. I don't like any cards where it's like has plus whatever when a certain race is on the board.
Just weird
But
restrictions.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like the Murlocs.
It does. It feels like a Merle, but it's not a permanent boost. So I really don't like the Cogmaster. I think if you're running a 1-drop, Clockwork Gnome is way better. And he's just not that good. I mean, he's good at killing the 2/3s. The problem is you need to have a mech, and he's not a mech. He's like a really bad top deck. So I don't really like him. He might be good, but I don't really like him. Now, onto a card which is very good and I quite like, although I am absolutely terrified of this thing. Mech Warper. Arguably the best card in the set. 2 mana 2/3 mech, common, because arena. Uh, your mechs cost 1 less. Now, for anyone who doesn't seem to understand why this card is ridiculous, it's not Pint-Sized Summoner. It's about 15 times better than Pint-Sized Summoner. First of all, it's mech. Second of all, it can reduce things to 0. It affects multiple things, which means you're gaining 1 mana per mech you play on the same turn. They stack, and it's a 2/3.
And it's a common.
Yeah.
Like this will probably plague arena,
It will.
and it is gonna see playing constructed. I think.
In like every mech deck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is going to be about 70% of the field, I think.
Yeah,
So,
this is the first time I've seen this or actually caught onto it, and it kind of does scare me now thinking about it.
yeah, because you haven't really looked at a lot of these cards very much, have you?
No, I haven't been following them. Probably like I should have been, but I didn't really have the time.
Yeah, it's fine because it means that like I've talked about most of these cards to death, so we got both perspectives. But something I will say about Mech Warper is the card looks really good when you look at it at first, but then it works better if you. I'm happy that it's at the beginning because it means that we can keep referring back to it. Because there's a lot of mechs that synergize really well with Mech Warper. And it's a card to keep in mind. A lot of the mech combos are good on their own, but with Mech Warper they're just busted. So it's something we'll be referring back to a lot. Simply because that effect is way more powerful than it looks. But anyway, considering we'll be looking back on this a lot, I think we should just move on from it now.
Right.
Micro Machine. 2 mana 1/2 mech. At the start of each turn, gain +1 attack.
So this is like a 3/2 before it attacks. Well, when it attacks.
Yeah.
I don't really like. There's not much more to say, I guess.
I don't
It's
really like it.
a 2 mana 3/2 when it attacks.
The problem is it's a 2/2 if
It's a 2/2. Yeah, it's a 2/2 on your opponent's turn. That's the bad thing.
like if it was a 2/2 for 2, I think it would be good. Because then it attacks for 4 and is a 3/2 on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, that would be a much better, I guess. But
I don't know. I think it's good in arena because if your opponent doesn't have a 2-drop, it just does a lot of damage.
yeah, I think that's the thing. Like in constructed, you're not. It's not like you're not gonna have a 2-drop
Or a
most
way of killing
cases,
one,
or a
unless
way
you're
of
paladin.
killing a 2-drop. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, this thing. I don't think it's one of those cards which was spoiled early, and I'm happy they did spoil it early because it had a bit of hype around it. Whereas if they put it in the last card dump, no one would have looked at it a second time because it's just not that good. But I mean, at the beginning of the spoiler, we didn't see a lot of the other more powerful things you can do with the set, so a lot of people were talking about it. But I think I don't think it's really worth looking at, to be honest. I'll try it out maybe, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna try it, but I don't know. Maybe it'll find some use somewhere.
Maybe. Anyway, on to the Puddle Stomper, the 2 mana 3/2 Murloc, which is completely random. But yeah, there's some Murloc and Pirate synergies in this set, by the way. There's just a couple of Murloc cards, a couple of Pirate cards. The Murlocs seem to be gravitating around Shaman for some reason. I don't know why. There's a Murloc draw engine in Shaman now, and it's really weird. So, weirdly enough, I think Puddle Stomper will see some play. Just because of that. But it's a 2 mana 3/2, right? So it makes it automatically better in Arena. Because 2 mana 3/2s kill everything basically on curve.
And not only does this make, like, not only is this good in Arena, but this makes Hungry Crab, like, a viable pick, I guess.
Because you'll probably run into one of these at some point.
Yeah, that's, like, you've got to run into one of them. It's a common 3/2.
If you don't run into one of these at some point in an Arena run with like 6 games minimum, you just got really unlucky. Like that's because it's a common 2-drop and it's a pickable 2-drop. Like it's basically a Bloodfen Raptor. So I don't know. I like the card because it's a Murloc that isn't trash in stats, and I think there's going to be a Murloc deck somewhere. I'm not sure how good it is, but there's going to be one somewhere. So decent card. Moving on to Recombobulator, a very confusing card. This is a 2 mana 3/2 with Battlecry. Transform a friendly minion into a random minion with the same cost. Now, I don't know if you've seen this card yet, but I just want to see what you make of it.
I like the RNG. I don't know. I guess it's kind of alright because it's the same cost, but I don't know, dude. Like, if you transform like a 2 mana card into a Doomsayer or something, then
It does
enjoy
work
that.
with giants. They have unique mana costs. So you can basically
Heal a giant, right?
you can heal a giant and take off humility from it and things like that.
That's fairly decent. Like, I didn't think about it that way, but I actually like that.
I think if there's a giant deck, which there might be, I'm not sure if Handlock can work anymore, because there might just be a bit too many high health minions that are hard to kill. But if there's a Handlock deck, I could see it as a one-off, because it just fully heals a giant, and then you can retaunt it up. So I could definitely see it in that deck. It's also a 2-drop, which means you can just play it and you can trade with a Mech Warper.
This is one of these cards where, to have a full opinion, you've just got to look at like the whole set
You also
of
need to
Hearthstone
play with
cards.
it as well. It's difficult
Yeah.
to tell. It's too random to figure it. Like in most situations, it's too random to figure out whether it's good or not. And in the situation where it's not random, it's a bit specific. So you still need to play with it. So I think we'll just leave that one, and we'll maybe come back to it later. But we'll just have to play with it. So on to the first of the Trogs. Now there are 3 Trogs, and the way the Trogs work is that when your opponent plays a spell, something happens. So the Bone Splinter Trog is the smallest of them. It is a 2 mana 2/3 common, which means it will automatically be good in Arena. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, it gains 1 attack. So the idea is that whenever your opponent casts a spell, it becomes a 3/3, then a 4/3, then a 5/3. I think this is... It's not... I don't think this is worth constructive play because 2/3s for 2 are usually better than this. But it's good in Arena, I'll definitely say that.
If like, I'm just thinking about how this card could be better, and if this was a 1-drop, but not 1-drop, 1/3 maybe, this would be...
Yeah, that'd be
quite good.
ridiculous though, because 1 mana 1/3s are usually really good.
Yeah, and then if you play this like if your first turn and you play this, your opponent has to coin out something, then
Yeah, it does. Actually, it works against the coin. That's true.
yeah.
But then you're depending on going first a lot. So, I don't like it in constructive, but I think in Arena it's a solid 2-drop that sometimes just has an upside. So it's worth picking in that.
Yeah,
format.
I don't see like it. There's not many spells in Arena usually, so it's not really gonna get the upside a lot. But it's a 2-drop and it's a 2/3. It's not
It's
weak at all.
solid 2-drop.
Yeah.
Alright. Speaking of solid 2 drops, Goblin, I think that's how you say that. Stalker, 2 mana, 2/3 with stealth, and it's a common, which means it's going to be insane in arena.
Yeah.
2/3 for
Anything
2
with
stealth?
and a common is actually
Pretty
kind of
good in that
unreal.
format.
Yeah.
But anyway, in constructed, I'm not sure, but I think this will see play in Rogue. The reason for it is because you can coin this on turn 1 or play it if you're going, like if you're going second, you can coin it out, and then you can dagger, and then you can kill 2/3s, or their 1 drop and their 2/3. And you can also use like a SI7 to kill their 3 drop. So, like, it works with the dagger really well. And later on in Rogue, if you're running Cold Bloods, you can just play it and leave it on the board, and then when you want to go off with Cold Bloods, you just can. You always have a minion on the board because it's probably not going to die to AoE. Like,
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, this is really strong for Cold Blood, the whole, but I don't see much use for it anywhere else in Rogue.
I still think it's good for trading. It's like, I mean, it's a Worgen Infiltrator that doesn't die immediately. But
Yeah, that's true.
it goes in Tempo Rogue. If there's a Tempo Rogue list, which I think there will be, because they've had a lot of support for it. If there's a Tempo Rogue list, I would definitely want to try this, because I love Tempo decks. Tempo Rogue has given me most of my really good tournament finishes, along with Druid. So I'm definitely going to try it out, see how good it is, and if it's good, I'm going to probably be playing Tempo Rogue a lot. Because I really like that style of deck. And this is a Tempo card. I'm not sure how good it is, but it's definitely got potential, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's not like you can. It's got the stats for a two mana card, so it's not bad. But it's definitely not amazing. I don't think.
Yeah, it's not. It's not fantastic. It's like it's not overpowered or anything. I just think it might be good.
No.
But we'll have to see. Now, Annoyotron. I've got a feeling Annoyotron. Alright, so Annoyotron is a card that we saw ages ago. 2 mana, 1/2. It was in the original spoiler, actually. Mech, Taunt, and Divine Shield. So the idea behind this is a gold shard from him with Divine Shield. Costs 1 more, but it's a mech. I'm not sure how good this is because there's so many 2/3s that this actually doesn't kill any 2 drops anymore. It
No.
does stop them from killing your Mech Warper for a long time, though. But I've got a feeling they're just going to have... Every deck's going to have removal spells for that thing that goes past Taunt anyway. So, I'm not sure how good this is.
I feel like this card's just gonna live up to its name. Really, it's just gonna be annoying if it is played. But I don't think it's gonna be like game-breakingly annoying.
I think Druid is the one. If you want a 2-drop Taunt that's a mech, go for Druid. Because they have that... they have the 2 mana 2/2 with Taunt and choose one that gives it either +1 health or attack. So you get more flexibility with your Taunt mech, and it's just... it's just way better than Annoyotron in my opinion, and so if you want that kind of card, go into that class. Annoyotron may be okay, but I'm not sure. In Arena, it's a bit low on the stat total, I think. So, I'm not so happy with this card, but we'll have to see where it goes. Anything else?
No, I have nothing else to say about this. I don't really like it either, to be fair.
Fair enough. Alright, Ship's Cannon. Ship's Cannon is a 2 mana 2/3. And it's a common, so there's... Wait, how many 2/3s for 2 are there that are common? 1, 2... There's a lot of additions to Arena here. There are 4 2 mana 2/3s that are common that are being added. And a 3/2. That's a big swing.
They're really big fans of 2/3s.
Yep, it's the set of 2/3s, which means that Uther is currently crying. But anyway, so Ship's Cannon, whenever you summon a pirate... Deal 2 damage to a random enemy. This card is incredibly random. I don't know why it exists, but it's awesome. Something else to notice, though. The art is a cannon with telescopic sights on it. And it has trouble hitting when it's supposed to.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
It's a sniper cannon. It's the worst sniper cannon in the world, but it's a sniper cannon. I will say that I'm going to play this just to see what the animation is.
I just don't get like this card released in this set. Unless there's been some pirates released further, like a bit further on.
There's one for Rogue. That's it.
So it's just gonna be another two, 3 for 2 basically.
In Arena, it might get some random upside because some of the pirates are playable in that format and are commons. So in Arena, it might see some triggering, but in terms of constructed, there's just the problem with the pirate cards is that it doesn't matter how good the pirate synergy cards are. Pirates are bad.
Yeah.
Like there's the problem. So I don't know. We'll have to go past it because pirates are just not good enough to make that card work. Alright, on to the last of the 2 drops, the Explosive Sheep. Now, the Explosive Sheep is a 2-mana 1/1 mech, that's a common. Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to all minions. So it has the same Death Rattle as Abomination, basically. It doesn't deal damage to players, but it has a similar Death Rattle to A-Bomb. Way cheaper, way less stats, but no one really cares when it's this cheap. I think this card is really, really good.
Yeah, I'm like really hyped for this card. Out of the whole set, I think I'm the most hyped for this card. Because me and you have been talking about poison seeds in snacks and saying that there will be a time where it's good. Or better than what it is now, and I feel like, I don't know, I'm going to do some playing around with poison seeds and explosive sheep.
So for anyone who missed that, it's basically 6 mana Twisting Nether. That's kind of insane, actually.
Yeah.
Like, we'll have to see. There's a couple combos with this. Like, my favorite interaction is actually a mid-range Hunter, where you can run Wild Pyromancer and Explosive Sheep with what's it called? Feign Death. So you have Explosive Sheep Feign Death, which is basically a Orkanai Circle combo, 4 damage to everything, and over 2 damage steps. So it kills things through Death Rattle, basically. And then you also have Wild Pyromancer with things like Tracking and Explosive Sheep, so you can do 3 damage AoE as well. And that's something you can do in Priest with Power Word Shield. And if you do it Power Word Shield, the Wild Pyromancer actually survives. So you get a 3/1 and you get like a mini circle combo for 3 damage. There's a lot of combo potential in control decks with this thing.
Yeah, this is like by far best 2-drop in my opinion.
I think
what I've seen like in neutrals,
I think MechWarper is stronger as you see some of the class-specific stuff, but out of just neutrals, I would say that Explosive Sheep is insane. Like, it's so good. It does so many things with control decks, and I've got a feeling if it wasn't for the sheep, control decks just wouldn't exist. Because the tempo decks just look absolutely insane coming out of Goblins and Gnomes.
Yeah.
So I'm happy this exists. We'll have to see where it goes, what deck it goes into, but I'm definitely going to be testing it. And it's a common, which means we can test it as much as we like. Get it immediately.
This is the thing that I'm going to be crafting straight away, like...
If you need to.
If I need to, before anything else.
Yeah, because it's like 100 dust, 2 copies of Explosive Sheep. Sweet.
Yeah. And then I'm going to play some random druid deck I make up.
Yep.
Like, this card I have thought about so much over the past few days, and yeah, I'm just really hyped for it.
It's a really cool card. I'm happy it's in the game. Alright, Tinkertown Technician, also known as the Triple T, because I'm not saying Tinkertown Technician 5 times fast, because it's impossible. 3 mana 3/3, Battlecry, it's a common by the way. Battlecry, if you have a mech, gain +1/+1 and add a spare part to your hand. So, this is a 3 mana 4/4 that draws you a spare part if you have a mech on the board. Dancing Swords is really unhappy.
Yeah.
It's just straight up the most unhappy card in Hearthstone right now.
As if it wasn't bad to start with, it just got worse.
It's like, it's so miserably bad.
This now, it's like as Your Drake when Lower Feb got released.
It's just like, but what? 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 What's going on?
What about me?
Why do I have competition now? But Dancing Swords wasn't even good in the first place, and it's being shunned.
Pretty much.
It's just horrible. But I've got a feeling that this, along with Mech Warper, is going to be one of the reasons, at least in neutral, why you want to be running a mech deck.
For sure.
A 3 mana 4/4 is a lot.
They're really going all out with the spare part thing as well. Like, oh,
Weirdly enough, I actually think that Tinkertown Technician is the best spare part card. There's a couple
yeah.
other ones, but I think Tinkertown is the best one because you get it as a battle cry and it's also a 3 mana 4/4, which is above the curve. So, yeah, I mean, when you play it normally, you don't get the spare part and you don't get the buff, but it's still a 3 mana 3/3, which is not miserably bad by any
No,
stretch.
it's not. It's still rather good on its own.
Yep,
But it's
it's a
so
good
easy
card.
to play this with a mech on a board. Like, not high cost. It's only 3 mana, and there's a lot of low cost mechs.
In Arena, this is really good.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many low cost mechs that we just saw all the 2 drops, and then you can play your own 2/3, and it doesn't trade, and then you can play Tinkertown. The other thing that's gonna happen is someone is going to silence a mech warper, and you're just gonna be like, well, I won't play my 4 drop. Instead, I'll play Tinkertown. Have fun. Because it's still a mech if you silence it, so it still gets the boost.
Is that how it works?
Yep. Silence doesn't remove creature types. It's the same with beasts. So
I
you
haven't
can.
actually thought about that. I don't think before.
It's
I don't
probably
think I've
because
ever
it
been
doesn't
in the
come up
position.
very often.
No.
And if it does, you're not really thinking about it. Like, if you kill command the face, you don't really notice if your beast is silenced or not.
No.
So it never really registers. But yeah, it's a pretty good card, to say the least. Good in Arena, it's a common, you'll see a bunch of mechs. And in Constructed, I think he's a player. Ogre Brute. 3 mana 4/4. Common. This is the first of the Ogre cards. Now, the Ogre cards are a cycle of cards, or kind of cycle, there's a bunch of them, which have a 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy, which that is a mouthful, so from now on, that is called the Ogre mechanic. 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. So, that's the Ogre mechanic. This kind of feels like it goes in the Dancing Sword section.
Yeah, and I hate the ogre mechanic. I just want to put that one out there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Although there is one card that is hilarious with it, but I don't like the ogre mechanic at all. I think it's a big drawback. I mean, obviously we're gonna play with it because it's a new set. When the set comes out, I'm gonna be deck building for like a week. But I'll try it. I don't like it, and I don't think it's that good. Anything on your end?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like, as soon as I saw it, I kind of hated it.
Yeah, it's kind of miserable. Anyway, on to the Goblin Sapper. Now, this is a 3 mana 2/4. Rare has 4 attack, plus 4 attack, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in his hand. Now, when this came out, I was like, it might be interesting every so often. With the rest of the set out, though, I have no idea what your opponent is doing if he has more than 6 cards in his hand. Like, there's so many low drops now. And
I feel like
not
they
good.
just released this to crush like Handlock and Miracle, and also like a lot of control decks.
It doesn't beat Miracle at all because it gets eviscerated.
That's what I feel like. I don't know.
I don't like this card.
Maybe they made this one at the start, like when they were developing the cards. This was one of the first ones that came up.
I think weirdly enough, the class that's best against is probably Control Warrior.
I guess it's still pretty good though. Like,
It's very good against Control Warrior. Like, they either hit it with Death Bite and they take 6, or they just can't kill it really. So it's good against Control Warrior. Problem is, like, I've got a feeling that there's just a lot of better options for 3 drops. So I don't really like it.
yeah, that's true. Like, think a town technician.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, in Arena, he's okay. He's not fantastic. If there's 2 other not so good rares, he's still a 3 mana 2/4, which is fine. In Constructed, I don't like him at all. Alright. Moving on to the Gnomish Experimenter. This is the card that I have talked the most about of any Gnomes card. Not because I want to theorize about it, but because I've been trying to tell people how stupid they are when it comes to Hearthstone mechanics. So this is a 3 mana 3/2 rare with Battlecry. Draw a card. If it's a minion, transform it into a chicken. Now, first of all, when you draw a card with this, if it's a Ragnaros, which it won't be because you won't be playing Rag, if it's a Ragnaros and it becomes a chicken, it does not matter. It is not a drawback. Jesus Christ. It's not a drawback. Like, this came up earlier as well, where there's a new druid card that shuffles a minion back into their deck, and it's like, oh my god, it's soft removal. I'm like, what? It's not. Okay, if something goes back into their deck, it's basically hard removal. Same Goblin Experimenter. If you draw a card and it becomes chicken, it does not matter because you just got a 1-mana 1/1 for free. That card would have never been drawn because
Yeah.
Hearthstone decks are random. All card games are random. It, Trump tried to explain this as well, and he failed miserably. People are still complaining about it.
It's nice, like, in spell-heavy decks, but
Then you might cheap one of your minions, and that's actually relevant when you draw your entire deck every time.
yeah.
Like, basically, the way this works is that if you draw your entire deck, it's a drawback. If you don't draw your entire deck every game, it's not a drawback. Ever. So that's basically how that works. It's the reason why Malorn as well, the Druid Legendary, isn't very good, because that shuffles itself back into your deck when it dies. The problem is that if you don't fatigue, you're probably not going to get value out of it ever. So, yeah, it's the same mechanic, and I don't I don't like these mechanics very much, the deck manipulation ones, because there aren't enough of them to make it kind of part of Hearthstone yet. It's just kind of awkward. But it also is an absolute headache because I get asked a lot of random questions, and this is one which I've had to answer about 15 times, and it's really pissing me off at this point. So, yeah, I don't think the card is very good. I think back when it was spoiled, I actually did think it was okay, but then Spider Tank was released and Tinkertown Technician. I was like looking at them, and then there was a bunch of extra mechs, and then a bunch of extra 3-drops, and it got worse with time because the rest of the cards were better.
Yeah.
Do you have any other opinions on this, or should we just move on?
I think we should just move on. Like,
Not,
I don't really like it that much.
not very good, but I just had to get it off my chest. 'Cause
It
people are
might
still
find a
asking.
place, but I doubt it.
It's like Gnomish Inventor. I want to say the 2/4. What's that thing called? The 4-mana 2/4 that draws you a card. Whatever. You know what I mean. Anyway, Illuminator 3-mana 2/4 rare. If you control a secret at the end of your turn, restore 4 health to your hero. This is terrible. It's just miserably bad. Basically, you only play it in secret decks, but then the secret decks that could play this don't want it, and the only secret deck that would play it is Freeze Mage, and they don't have space for it, so the card is just bad.
Pretty much. So it's like, I just think if you look at all the other 3-drops, like I've been scanning across the page while looking at it, and I don't think the stats are that good. And also, yeah, finding room for this is, with all the other 3-drops, is kinda nah.
Yeah. What's really funny is when this card was spoiled, people were like, oh my god, they're just making 3-mana 2/4s, and I'm like, who cares? We have Dark Cultist. This is not 3-mana 2/4s are not impressive. So I don't like Illuminator. Obviously, he's decent in Arena because there's a 3-mana 2/4. That's just a
A
thing.
lot of these cards you're gonna find are decent in Arena though. Like,
Yep. If there, I mean, basically, if there's anything insanely good in Arena, we'll mention it. If there's anything really bad in Arena, we'll mention it because most of these cards are just okay in that format. Lil Exorcist, 3-mana 2/3 with Taunt and Battlecry. Gain +1/+1 for every enemy death rattle. This is very good at the moment. Very bad a week from now.
yeah, if this was like in the game right now, this would be possibly one of the best cards.
However, unfortunately for the Little Exorcist, it missed its set. If it was in Naxxramas, it would have been very good. But it's not. It's in Goblins and Gnomes because it's a gnome. And it's bad. Why? Because no one cares about death rattles anymore unless there's like a bunch of Undertaker decks running around, which I would be very surprised, to be honest. I don't like this card.
I wish they'd release this in Nax.
It would have been so good, yeah. Ugh.
That would have been game changing.
Instead of Dancing Swords or that stupid gargoyle,
Yep, pretty much.
would have been nice.
Like, they were like they were the 2 useless cards in Max Ramos.
Which reminds me, after the set comes out, for like a week after, I think like a week after the set, I'm probably gonna do a weekly show with like top 10 worst cards from Nax and Goblins combined. That sounds like a top 10 list I'd enjoy doing for some reason. But anyway, Hobgoblin. This is arguably my favorite card in the set. Not because of how good it is, but because it's hilarious. 3 mana 2/3. Whenever you play a 1 attack minion, give it +2/+2. This card is not good, but the combos with it are hilarious.
Wait, does this work with Paladin Hero Power?
No, it doesn't. It says play.
Okay.
So it works with Imp Master. Like when you play the Imp Master, it becomes a.
Also, it works with Wisps.
Yeah, it works with Wisps. It works with Flying Machine, which is a terrible card, which is above us. The 3 mana 1/4 with Wind Fury. It works with the Gnomes Infantry, which is also a terrible card because that thing has Chon. It works with Silverback. Works with the. Oh my god, I'm going to be playing the Stoneskin Gargoyle in a deck. Actually, no, I won't be.
Baron Riven there. That works with that.
Oh my god, yeah, it's insane. And it'd obviously be a warrior deck, because then you can play Acolyte of Pain and Armorsmith. So,
Oh damn!
The
I
funny
actually
thing is,
didn't think about that.
the deck is really good if you draw Hobgoblin and it doesn't die immediately. But if you don't draw Hobgoblin on time and it does die immediately if you do play it, then it's just bad. But it's really awesome. I like the fact this card exists. In Arena, it's too situational. In Constructed, it's probably also too situational, but it's a fun card.
Yeah,
Cards
it could be
fit
fun.
in 3 categories, in my opinion. Good and Constructed, so good cards, fun cards, and why the hell is this here cards. This fits in the fun cards category, whereas some of the other ones fit in the why is this here category, like Little Exorcist, which is in the wrong set. So, yeah, it's like I like the card. I think it's hilarious. It's my favorite card in the set because it's just funny. But it's definitely not the best card in the set by far. I actually think it's probably in the bottom 50%, to be honest.
Okay, I just looked at the next card and the next card after that.
Pretty miserable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to force the Hobgoblin
Yep.
type thing.
So the next card is the Silverback Patriarch of the set. Gnomes Infantry. 3 mana, 1/4 with charge and taunt. Stop making these.
See, if it didn't have charge, then I'd just be like, okay, then maybe they're not trying to force the whole Hobgoblin thing, but
No.
just because it's got charge, that's basically the general idea.
Not much to say about this card. It's a Silverback Patriarch. Meh. Flying Machine, the Magma Rager of the set. Incredibly useless and doesn't do much. 3 mana, 1/4 with Wind Fury. It's a mech though. Aha, it's still bad.
It lives to be buffed. Maybe it lives a turn to be
It's
buffed.
the Stoneskin Gargoyle of the set, actually. I correct myself.
I'd still say Stoneskin Gargoyle's worse than this.
Yeah, it is. Power Creep. The worst cards in the set are getting better. It's miserably bad. Anyway, onto Spider Tank. This is not miserably bad. This is really good. 3 mana, 3/4 common mech. This is bonkers in Arena, first of all. Common Yeti at 3 mana.
I love this card.
Oh my god, it's so good. Like,
this is one of the cards that I have looked at because I heard so much hype around it.
it's so good. It's, those stats, like, think about it. It's a Dark Cultist that's a mech. Doesn't have the Death Rattle, but it's a
It doesn't
Dark
need
Cultist
the
stats.
Death Rattle.
It has a mech thing on it. This is really insanely good.
I'm kind of glad this got released. I feel like this is exactly what every class needed, to be fair.
It does mean Priest can play 4 Dark Cultists, which is a bit scary.
Yeah, that's kind of a bit scary, I guess, but still.
Like, what this is basically saying is Dark Cultist was too good for its time, but Spider Tank is evening out the power curve a bit.
Just a bit.
I mean, there is one card there's a couple cards in the set they should not have made because, as far as I'm concerned, there is one card in Naxxramas which was too powerful and was deliberately too powerful because it stops you from doing stupid combos that just make the game unfun, which was Loatheb. And if they ever reach the power level of Loatheb on a card that is not designed to make the game more fun to play, they've made a mistake. And there's a couple cards that get very close, and there's one card that actually gets there, which is scary.
I still haven't seen these cards. I
We'll
want
get
to
there
see.
eventually, but yeah, it's a couple of the cards in the set are too powerful. However, most of these cards are just evening out the power curve from Nax, which I'm okay with. Spider Tank is one of those cards. Very, very good. Not overpowered, it's just good. And along with Harvest Golem, which is now a mech, so it's Damaged Golem, you can actually run... You have versatility in your 3-drops in a mech deck is the point. Which I'm okay with.
Yeah, I'm kind of fine with that too, I guess.
I like this card. Enhanso Meccano, 4 mana, 3/2 mech with Battlecry. Give your other minions Wind Fury, Taunt, or Divine Shield at random. So
Not RNG.
RNG for the most ragey thing ever. Someone's gonna die when they're on like 30 life, and someone's like, "Hey, I got Wind Fury on a full board." Okay. But yeah, the Taunt is going to screw some people over sometimes, and Divine Shield is just miserable. So I've got a feeling that he's like Animal Companion, where if you get exactly what you want, he's insane, but if you don't, he's kind of okay, not that good. The problem is you need a board.
Yeah, and I don't... I think this is a better one-off, to be fair.
Yeah. It's like, if there's a mech zoo deck, which there will be, then this is a one-of along with Dark Iron Dwarf. If they still play Dark Iron. I don't know how the zoo deck is going to look, but I think it's going to be a one-of in that deck. Because you usually do have a board, and then it just gets a bunch of value no matter what you get.
Like, you're getting something no matter what.
I think the worst one is Taunt. Divine
Well,
Shield
it's
is
very
probably the best one.
situational.
Divine Shield is the best one, I think. Divine Shield is really good. Unless your opponent's playing Blood Knight for some reason.
Yeah, I could see that this is... But this could be a problem.
But yeah, I think the card is okay as a one-off. I would never play 2 because you don't always have a board, so there's just clogs in your hand.
I'd like to see how this works though. Does it select each minion and give them either Taunt...
I think it gives them global.
Wind Fury, so it's like a global Divine Shield
I think so. It needs testing because the wording isn't clear.
No.
But I think it's global. Now, next card, Jeeves, the most overhyped for no reason card in the entire set. So, Jeeves is a 4-mana 1/4. He's a mech, he's a rare, and at the end of each player's turn, that player draws until they have 3 cards. Now let me just explain why this card is terrible. It sounds really good until you realize that your opponent gets it as well.
I've never liked to see opponent draw
I
like
rest my
things,
case. This is bad.
and this is just another one. Like,
They
you
get
could
more as well, by the
possibly...
way. Like
It is... Oh yeah, they can play cards just to get extra cards on their turn.
Yep.
I don't like this. You have no control over it really once you've played it.
What's really annoying is that you're going to play Jeeves. He's probably going to draw you 2 cards if you're playing on turn 4. He's going to draw you like 2 cards. Maybe 3 if you top deck him really late in the game. But then your opponent is probably just going to play his entire hand with the... Like, he just top decks, plays his cards, draws 3 guaranteed whenever you play Jeeves because he just drops his hand size.
Your sound just cut out for me there.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Alright.
You're back now.
I think it was fine. We're recording on TeamSpeak, so it's a bit choppy from time to time. But anyway, so basically the problem with Jeeves is that if you don't top deck him as the only card in your hand, you're probably going to draw 2 cards from him, not 3. And then your opponent is always going to draw 3. So they can actually just remove Jeeves, and then... Actually, no, they don't even want to remove Jeeves. They just leave him on the board, and then you have the stupid 1/4 that you're actually trying to kill, because your opponent got more cards out of it than you.
Unless you attempt to get value, I guess, but then it could snowball. This is very snowbally.
It doesn't win the game for you, it just makes the game go faster. It just accelerates the game for both players, but then if the game is getting faster every turn, you just spent 4 mana on your Jeeves, whereas your opponent didn't have to spend 4 mana on the Jeeves. And if you try and kill your own Jeeves, you don't get that last bit of draw. So whoever chickens out first misses value. I don't
The good
really
thing
play games
about
like that.
this card is that you can kill it yourself.
Yeah, but then you don't get the draw at the end of the turn.
Yeah, but like if you really want to remove this card, you can. Unlike the 0/4s,
Yeah, you
Lord
actually can
Orchard
attack with it.
can attack with this.
So yeah, that's a thing. But I don't like Jeeves. I think he's a bit too risky whenever you do play him. Anyway, not to mention, you might just be playing against a deck which benefits way more from the card draw. Like, if you play against Tempo Rogue and you play Jeeves, they actually laugh at you and then thank you. Because they just play their entire hand, and then they draw 3 cards, and they play combo cards, so they need those cards. So, yeah, it's pretty bad against a lot of decks, because they probably use cards better than you do. But anyway, Piloted Shredder. 4 mana, 4/3 mech with Death Rattle, summon a random 2-cost minion. First of all, it's a common, which means it's like a pseudo Yeti in Arena, which is nice.
This is an arena god,
Yeah, it is.
my opinion.
It's on the same level as Yeti, arguably slightly higher, maybe. I think it's on the same level because it dies. Like the main body does die to a lot of stuff, but it's really good. The best 2-drop you can summon is Millhouse Mana Storm, because it just is a 4/4. The worst ones you can get are probably like Captain's Parrot is the worst one you can get, I think. Because Doomsayer sounds bad, but it's only bad if you're winning a lot, and then you traded it on your turn instead of heading for the face, which is what you should have been doing. And then
Yeah.
if he trades into it, he probably can't kill the Doomsayer, so it just wipes his board out. So, and then you have initiative. So yeah, Piloted Shredder actually only has a few downsides on the 2-drops, but then it's still a decent amount of stats for the 4-drop cost. So I actually really like this card.
Like they've added a lot of 2/3s, so I'm guessing it's like it's a 6/6, right?
2/2
4/4.
was the average before. It's probably slightly higher now. It's closer to 5 stats you're getting off average. So it's like a 12 stat 4-drop over 2 bodies usually.
I like this.
I think it's really good. It's the baby brother of the piloted Sky Golem, which we'll get to in the second part. So I quite like the card. I think it's playable and constructed. I think it's pretty decent. In Arena, it's an absolute god, as you described it. It's so good in Arena. So much value. It's also a mech, so that's a thing.
Yeah, I think just being a mech is quite good. Kinda.
Yeah, it's a big upside. You get less cost. You get all the buffs from the class cards and things like that. I think it's a pretty big upside. But anyway, on to the second Trog. Second Trog is Burly Rock Trog. The 4 mana 3/5. This is the foot soldier of the Trogs. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, gain 2 attack. This card is miserably bad against Priest, so much so that when you play it against Priest, you feel really bad.
Wait, does this
It dies
die
to
to Shadow of Death?
Pain, and when you Shadow Madness it, it's a 5/5, and if you don't have either of those, you can play a spell and then Shadow of Death it.
Ah.
And you can also Shrinkmeister and Cabal it. It's basically gives your opponent a card if you're playing against Priest. It's miserably bad against Priest. Against the other classes, I don't really like it as an actual card. I think there's just better 4-drops. Like, if you play it on turn 4, it's the biggest thing on the board, so any spells that are removal are going towards the Trog anyway, so the effect doesn't actually matter. And if you play it later on in the game, it's just going to die to other minions.
Like a lot of this stuff with when your opponent casts a spell is easy to play around, to be fair.
And sometimes you just won't care. Like, if you play Burly Rock Trog and your opponent goes Loatheb, you're really unhappy.
Yeah.
Because you can't remove the Loatheb, and it's just going to eat your Trog.
Pretty much, it trades perfectly.
Yeah, and then you play your Sludge Belcher, and then the Loatheb eats the Belcher, because that's, you know, the one situation where Sludge Belcher is really, like, it just doesn't feel right.
Maybe Loatheb is starting to get on fun now, I'm not sure yet.
With all the combo decks dying off, it might be. That card is too powerful. It just is.
Yeah, it always has been powerful, but it's always
been good for the game. It might not
Yeah.
be moving forward. Because, like, it looks like the game's going to become tempo oriented. So what's going to happen is that the game is going to slow down at first. It's going to be a lot of people trading, and it's going to play like Death Rattle Priest mirrors. That's how tempo mirrors tend to work, and they're actually pretty entertaining because there's just a lot of stuff going on. So you play basically both players going backwards and forwards. Then someone gets a board position, and normally the other person spends a turn to wipe the board, and then you're back at parity, and then you do that until someone runs out of cards, and then they lose. However, because of Loatheb, if that person happens to have Loatheb when he has board position, you instantly lose.
GG.
Like, it kind of reminds me of, in Priest Death Rattle mirrors, sometimes there's just, like, Cabals on the board and things like that, and you can't remove it even with Circle Combo, so you just lose. Because you just can't kill the board. And that's going to happen a lot, I think. And that's how tempo mirrors tend to work, but the health totals on a lot of these cards are so high that it's going to slow down the game a lot, but then the game's going to end pretty quickly, because you won't be able to respond to a lot of this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very different metagame for what we used to, which is like either control mirrors or aggro. It's like tempo. We haven't had a tempo metagame in ages.
No, but I do feel like Blizzard should have a look at Loatheb now, just thinking about it.
He's too much of a tempo swing.
Yeah.
In fact, no, he's not a tempo swing, he's a tempo stop.
Like, if he were cool when he got released in Nax.
I called that, by the way. I said that card was way too good, and what I got in the comment section, I talked about it for 45 minutes. People were like, no, you're just overreacting. It's not that good.
People don't notice how good it is now because, like, it's really perfect in both. It works in every deck and it's good.
The point is, like, it's so good, it's in every deck, and it's a legendary, but it might just be a bit too good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's stronger than 5-mana Sylvanas was, because you can silence Sylvanas.
Yeah, you can't silence Loatheb. Maybe that would be some way to go, I don't know.
Like, if you silence him,
But that's still fairly bad.
But then you'd have to do weird templating as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But anyway, this isn't a Loatheb brand. We'll get there when we get to Vojin, which is basically the Loatheb of the set. Even costs 5 mana. Arcane Nullifier. 4 mana, 2/5. Taunt, it's a mech. And it has Fairy Dragon's ability. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. I have no idea how good this is. I don't think it is. It would have been insane in the current metagame.
Yeah. I guess it could stop a lot of stuff, but...
It might be really good. It might be like the Sludge Belcher of the set, you know, not very impressive, but it's just good.
Yeah, it's...
But I'm not sure.
You just got to, like, some of these cards you just have to play with and see first.
Exactly. The one problem with it is the effect is insane, it's very hard to remove. The problem with it is that I've got a feeling a lot of the metagame is going to be high health minions, so chances are when you play it, it's just going to get obliterated and it's not going to deal much damage to the board.
No. This is a common thing with this set where the health is quite high.
It's pretty damn high. Like,
Yeah.
the average, like, it doesn't kill 2/3s, which is really bad.
Exactly.
So the average health on stuff is higher than normal, which is fine because it means that the game becomes more tempo-centric as opposed to rush you down immediately centric. But anyway, so in Arena, I think he's okay. I'm not sure how good he is in Arena. Needs testing. He's hard to call. I'll say he's hard to call because we're not really used to a hex-proof taunt.
It's either going to be the Death Lord or the Sludge Belcher.
There's no real middle ground, is there?
No.
I mean, he could be the Sen'jin of the set, but I think he's a bit too specific to be the Sen'jin of the set, you know, just rock solid. So, we'll have to see. Kazan Mystic. Now, this is why they nerfed Flare, basically. 4 mana, 4/3. Rare, Battlecry. Not destroy an enemy secret, take control of a random enemy secret.
So the secret's got to be in play, right?
Yep,
Right.
This is the final nail in the coffin to Freeze Mage. They have put so many nails in the Freeze Mage coffin that I actually don't even think you can see the coffin anymore.
I think you obliterated the corpse of Freeze Mage now.
Like, basically, Freeze Mage, this is the number of cards that instantly win the game against Freeze Mage, as I've accidentally clicked Arcane Nullifier. Okay, cool art. Anyway, so this is the short list of cards that completely obliterate Freeze Mage. Loatheb. Wailing Soul. Keeper of the Grove. Spellbreaker. There's like Kazan Mystic. Tree of Life, which got added recently. Healing Touch with Big Game Hunter. Flare.
Uh,
Like, the list is pretty long.
yeah, I really don't even know why. Why? I actually like freeze mages as a thing, and it was starting to come back a little bit, and now it's just like completely crushed.
Yeah, and they've nerfed it so many times. They've nerfed it twice basically, and they've also released a bunch of cards that are good against it. So I think Freeze Mage is dead,
Pretty
like
much dead now.
completely dead. Which actually they've added a lot of mage cards which work well with standard control decks and also like tempo decks for mage, which is fine. Like if as long as they're adding something else to compensate, which they didn't do for Paladin, but we'll get there. So Kazan Mystic, good in secret metagames. I'm not sure how relevant that's gonna be, but the point is it's in the game, so it's like you can fall back on it. Is the point? It's like Spellbreaker.
Yeah,
Spellbreaker I think
it's
is
a
better than this.
situational card.
Spellbreaker's less situational, but as long as Mad Scientist is in the game, Kazan Mystic will be decent at some point. Mad Scientist got way worse, by the way, because it's a bunch of 2/3s.
It's one of these cards that is like big game hunter, or just it's a situational card and it's meta game dependent.
Exactly, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that too.
Yep, I'm completely fine with this. Now, I'm going to run for a bit on this one. Mechanical Yeti. 4 mana, 4/5, common, mech, death rattle, both players get a spare part. Now, I'm going to allow you to say what you want to about this card first, because I'm going to be ranting about it.
Like, I don't know, I like it. In arena, this is okay. The drawback isn't that bad, but I guess it's just a Yeti. Like, why would you want to play this instead of a Yeti if you had the choice?
That's the problem. If you really look at it, it doesn't give your opponent a spare part, it gives both players the spare part. It's not a drawback.
But yeah, that's true. I get, but like the spare parts, like
This is where it
I don't
gets...
know.
Alright, this is what I'm ranting about, because some of the people I hang out with, one of them is called Dr. Makel. And I told him I'd rant about this on his behalf, because he was one of those people who was saying that while the power level of cards is going up, there isn't actual power creep because they aren't strictly better. It's like this isn't anything that's just being made straight up obsolete. Yeti, however, is straight up obsolete and constructed now, because Mechanical Yeti, same cost, same stats, Death Rattle, which is it's universal to both players, so it's not a drawback. It just is Death Rattle, which means it works with Undertaker randomly. And also, for no reason, it is a mech, which is arguably the single strongest creature type they've ever made.
Oh yeah, I kind of overlooked the mech part.
Why does
My
this
bad.
exist? Like, seriously, what? We did not need it. Alright, so what they should do to make up for this is they should make the normal Yeti a beast.
That would make sense, actually. Isn't there a list of cards that have turned into beasts?
Yeah, it's not one of them. It's only Druid of the Claw got turned into beasts.
Right.
So they've basically made Yeti obsolete. You would never play Yeti instead of Mechanical Yeti. Why? Because even if there's no mech synergies in your entire deck, the Death Rattle is such that if your opponent trades into it, he doesn't get initiative because he had to invest to kill it because it's a 4/5. So chances are he doesn't have attacks left to use them, or he doesn't have the mana. So you get the initiative. And if you're the one trading, you usually trade first, which means you still have the mana, which means you get initiative. Which means the Death Rattle is not a drawback, it actually goes slightly, tiny amount in your favor. But that slight amount is enough to tip it to the point when Yeti becomes completely obsolete. That's not good for the game.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at now, actually.
That's just... no. It's my least favorite card in the entire set. And what's even worse is I think I might be playing with it because a mech Yeti is probably going to be really important because of Spider Tank. Like, that's what's unfortunate, is I'm probably going to end up playing with this card. Not that much, but a decent amount. And it's just miserable. Like, I don't... like, it's going to feel good when you're playing it, but when you put it next to Yeti, they have the same rarity. Actually, Yeti's a basic, so I guess the only time you'll see Yeti is when it's a new player who doesn't have any cards. So that's a thing. But basically, they have the same rarity in Arena. They have the same cost. They have the same stats. One of them has a strictly better creature type over no creature type, and a slightly better death rattle because it triggers Undertaker, and also gives you slight initiative. So it's just strictly better. And in Arena, in Arena, if there's a mechanical Yeti and a normal Yeti, you will take the mechanical one, but you will take Yeti over a lot of other stuff. So that's the end of my rant on this card. I'm really unhappy they made it, but I'll play with it because it's good. Especially in Arena, it's very good in Arena. But, meh. I don't like the fact this exists at all. And yeah, I'm just going to pass it back to you if there's anything else you want to say before we move on.
I don't know. I think I feel like this would be so good as well with if it was Battle Cry, the death rattle.
Well, then you just get like the most initiative possible.
Yeah, like I want to win.
Yeah.
I need to win.
You disgust me sometimes. Anyway, Mini Mage. The miniest of mages at 4 mana. That's not a mini mage. Anyway, 4 mana, 4/1, epic. Okay. Stealth and spell damage 1. Now, this fits in the category of cards where if it was any cheaper, it'd be overpowered, but at its current cost, it's useless.
Yeah.
I think that's all I need to say about that.
It has stealth, but still, it's not real. Like, there's a lot of things that do 1 damage AoE.
The problem is that it dies to every AoE imaginable. It dies to random knife juggler triggers. And on top of that, if you want spell damage for a spell combo, play Blood Mage.
If you're anything like me, like, if you play this card, your opponent plays Knife Juggler, and you could have a full board of minions, but this Knife Juggler will still hit that card.
Yeah, well.
It's going to happen.
And yeah, the funny thing is that every single time it does happen, it always stays with you. But when it doesn't happen, you just forget about it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it sticks with you. So it gets really annoying. Alright, so not very good in Arena, not very good in Constructed. Onto a card, the last 4-drop. This is the last card in this this particular part. Lost Tool Strider. 4 mana, 5/4, common beast. Vanilla. I am happy this card exists. It is the reverse Yeti. And hammers home that Yeti should be a beast.
And more Web Spinner.
And yeah, it works with Web Spinner, which is really nice actually. But this works in Druid potentially, with Druid of the Fang. It's a decent beast you can play. And if Yeti was a beast, you could also play that. So it'd be, you know, actually a playable card in my opinion. The Druid of the Fang, if you haven't seen a jonpii, is a 5 mana 4/4, where if you have a beast when you play it, it becomes a 7/7 instead.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so it would work. But Lost Tool Strider is okay. It's a good pick in Arena. I think it's good that it exists, and I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with this card existing. I'm happy it does. It's not overpowered or anything. It's just a good card.
Maybe we should make a petition to get Yeti into a beast, though.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, we should. Because it doesn't make much sense that it's just...
I like this. Like, adding the beast is nice, and changing...
It's like...
I've just blown my own mind, right? So, you know how the Druid of the Claw tokens got changed to beast?
Correct.
How is this going to work with Web Spinner, or is it going to work with Web Spinner at all?
I don't think so, because they have to be collectible. You can't collect Druid of the Claw transformations.
Oh yeah, you can't get a hand from Web Spinner. Never mind.
So yeah. Fortunately, that doesn't work that way, because then Web Spinner would have just got a significant power boost with Gazrilla, Lost Tool Strider, both Druid of the Claw transformations, and the Druid of the Fang.
Yeah, that'd be really strong.
Would have been a bit insane. But I actually would like Yeti to be a beast, because then it's like River Crocolisk and Bloodfen Raptor, but the 4-drops. You know, like one is more aggressive, one is more trade-centric instead, and they're both beasts. That'd be cool. But until that happens, the mechanical Yeti is a reminder as to Yeti's downfall.
I don't see it happening, to be honest.
Me neither, but it'd be nice if it did.
It would.
But anyway, So that's pretty much it for the first part. Um, Thanks for coming on for this particular one, jonpii. I know you're going to be stuck with me for another 3 hours or so.
No,
But
no problem.
that's the first 30 cards. Went through all 30. And out of this, like, Mech Warfare is something we're coming back to a lot. Explosive Sheep, highlight. Tinkertown, highlight. Hobgoblin, highlight in terms of how hilarious it is. Spider Tank, Piloted Shredder, Mechanical Yeti. These are all cards you want to be keeping an eye on out of the 4 drops. So I think just from the 1 to 4 drops, or 0 to 4 drops technically, I think it's a pretty decent pool. It's not...
Yeah, there's not many totally cards, like, that's nice. When there's, like, you had the thing where you put them into 3 different places, good in arena, good in constructed, and cards are completely bad cards.
Yeah.
There's not many completely bad cards.
There's only 2. Flying Machine and No Morgan Infantry. And,
Yeah, they are
like,
completely bad.
Ogre Brute is also pretty bad, I think. Besides that, like, pretty much every other card, and Target Dummy, I guess, but every other card is, like, it either fits into making the arena environment better because they're all commons and rares, basically, there's a couple epics, or making the constructed environment better, and I'm happy about that for an expansion. That's a good thing. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with the 4-drop and lower neutrals. There's a lot of interesting synergies you can do, and a lot of deck creating ideas. Just coming out of the 4-drops.
After looking at all these 4-drops, I'm looking forward to playing Goblin versus Gnomes now.
Yeah, because these are the cards you're going to see the most, right? The 1 to 4 drops.
Yeah. Like, I didn't have much hype for the expansion, but I can feel it now.
This is the beginning of the hype train. We still have the class cards to go at some point, and those are really, really insane. But anyway, so that's pretty much it for the first part. I won't do my outro because I'm going to be uploading the second part today as well. So I will see you guys in the second part. So this is Jotto and jonpii signing off for about 10 minutes. See you guys in the next part. Say bye, jonpii.
Goodbye.